Michael, I'll turn to you. What are we supposed to think about the Fed in the midst of all this?
Yeah, I think the Fed has, in some ways, an easy meeting, but a hard meeting. And I think essentially we're looking for three things today, signals about the future. One is how much confidence do they have that inflation is moving lower? We think the data that's come in since they met in December should give them confidence it's still heading lower. That should guide markets to lower rates. On the other hand, as we've all been saying in this segment, there's a heck of a lot of policy uncertainty. The more that they get stuck with that, the more they're probably on the sideline now. So it's a tricky balance for them at the moment. And then third, as was mentioned by Jamie, what do we do with the balance sheet? When do we start having serious discussions on ending the balance sheet? So a lot of things on the Fed schedule today. As Steve said, I'm not sure Powell wants to answer a lot of these questions. They need more clarity, just like markets do.
Imagine if he just canceled the press conference and said, you know what, we're just going to pick it up next time.
Subhadra, Kelly, I think that'd be a good idea.
You know, what could be worse than inadvertently causing a big sell-off? Subhadra, yesterday Diane Swank was here and said something interesting, which is while she agrees with everyone that they're probably going to bias towards waiting as this all comes in, that they might have a better shot at doing a cut in March than later in the year, in part because of how she thinks the tariff and kind of price issue will evolve. I'm just curious if you could weigh in on that. And you still think we could have, 3 cuts this year, the way that things are looking now?
Yeah, I think that if you look at the trajectory for the economy, everything is fine. But as Mike Gapen was pointing out, uncertainty is really what's driving a lot of the price action, not just in the equity market, as well as in the bond market. So, there's the Fed is going to be very data dependent. I don't think they tell us what they're going to do at the March meeting, but ultimately their bias is towards easier policy. So, let's say we get a weak employment figure, or we get more uncertainty on any of the other policies, and the impact of that are being borne by the market. I think the Fed's bias is going to be towards easing. So, in that sort of context, the market's very efficiently priced in for just 2 cuts for this year. I could easily see a scenario where if the data actually turns and we start seeing some weakness, say in employment, for instance, that the Fed starts pivoting towards easier policy.
For sure.
Whether that needs to be front-loaded or back-loaded is not clear to me. I think that's going to really depend on the sequencing of the data.
But I don't like what you said, because I think we'd all love the rate cuts that come on the immaculate disinflation, as it's called, without the slowing economy part. And it was interesting in the consumer confidence survey where a lot of consumers were a little bit more downbeat about their job prospects. We've seen a little drumbeat of headlines now with some companies that are struggling, like Kohl's, but steadily there's been a lot of trimming and job cuts in the news, Subhadra. So is that what you're talking about, where we could see some labor market weakness?
Yeah. You could definitely see that. I mean, there's also the wildfires in California that could have some sort of near-term impact. And then broadly speaking, the impact of immigration, I mean, that could eventually lead to a tighter labor market. But again, we're starting to look at any possible potential sign of weakness. I think the Fed is going to be much more biased towards easing than staying on pause or hiking from here on. So they're going to have to weigh a lot of conflicting, policy, measures and what the impact is going to be. But ultimately, I think that they're probably going to favor easier policy.
All right. Well, I thank you all for hanging with us on this busy news day. And we'll see if it's busier or not next hour. Michael Gapen, Subhadra Rajappa, and Jamie Cox. Really appreciate it.